now. But good afternoon, guys, and good morning to Maddie in Australia. I believe it's what, 9:30 over there in the morning?
10 a.m.
Okay, awesome. So thank you guys for joining us this evening, taking time out of your day. We're here to learn more from GAV, or Global Academic Ventures. They are going to be our third-party provider who is supporting us for all internships in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Malaysia. And I did want to say one quick thing before I kind of hand it over to Maddie or any questions. Our application deadline is actually going to be extended to December 10th. Some of you may have received an email from myself or the Study Abroad office today. We had some application issues that were going on. So we have now extended that deadline just by about 9 or 10 days. That way you're able to get those pieces finished on the part of the application that wasn't quite responsive for us. But with that being said, and I see Stephen just joined in as well, I'm going to kick it off to Maddie for a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll get going.
Thanks for joining. We're excited that you have an interest in our international internship programs. So my name is Maddie. I work for Global Academic Ventures on internship placements and program logistics as well. I've been with GAV for going on 5 years now. I work now out of our Sydney office, so I've been here for a little over a year, and worked back in our Chicago office for the remainder of my time with GAV. So I've gotten the chance to travel to a lot of our GAV locations. So if you have questions about the specific locations, I've been to all of them, so I'm able to, speak a little bit more on the actual, personal experience that you might have in each of these spots, as well as, a really in-depth knowledge of the placement process and program logistics. So if you have questions, please just raise your hand in the chat, put them in the chat box, or just unmute yourself. We'll keep it pretty casual, and I'll just go through my presentation and just let me know if you have any questions. All right, so I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. All right, so to start off, as Emily mentioned, our program locations will be Hong Kong, pending university approval, Singapore, and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So all of these locations, you'll find some things that are pretty similar throughout. They're all, located on similar areas of the world, but they all are fairly different. So if you have questions, you're trying to decide which location might be the best fit for you based on the types of companies or the experience, the cultural experience you might have, just let me know and I can help answer those. So just a general overview of kind of what the program looks like. So really a lot of it is obviously your internship placements. So you would be expected to be at your internships Monday through Friday, 9 to 5:30, 9 to 6, 8:30 to 5, just depending on whatever company you're placed with. But typical working hours, about 40 hours a week, obviously with lunch breaks, 37.5, they say. So pretty typical working week for you. But basically, you'll arrive into your internship location on June 7th. If you're going to intern in Singapore, you do arrive a day early. That is because something with your work holiday pass, which is what allows you to do your internship. It's not a visa, but it's similar. We don't need to get into those details right now, but you do just arrive a day earlier so that you have time to process your work holiday pass. So that's why that date is just a little bit different. And if you are interested in looking at, flights and things, don't buy anything, of course, until you're fully approved and ready to go and we give you that information. But if you're just curious on like what the flights look like, because it is, farther locations, just note that the days will look a little bit different. You're going to lose a couple of days in flight time. So these are the days that you'll arrive and your flight will likely leave a couple days or a day earlier. So you arrive in your locations, you'll be greeted by our team, go through orientation, safety, anything you need to know, talk about how to use public transport in your specific location, again, safety numbers, and just general kind of what to expect throughout your program. So you'll go through orientation with our on-site team, and then you'll do welcome dinner and some type of walking tour around the city. So you'll get to kind of familiarize yourself with the area, and our teams who are knowledgeable in that location will be able to, give you all the things you need to know to settle into your internship and your program. So that will be that first weekend. And then going into Monday, June 10th, you'll start your internship. So again, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5:30-ish, with weekends free to kind of do whatever you prefer, and obviously the evenings as well. So once you get started on your internship, it is pretty, you get to have that freedom to go and work like you normally would in a full-time role, and then have your evenings free and your weekends free to meet up with other group members, go out and explore the city that you choose. And then that will go on for those 8 weeks. And then August 3rd, you will check out and depart back for the US or wherever you're traveling next. So just a brief overview of some of the inclusions. So you are going to be in shared accommodation during the program. It's typically apartment, hotel style accommodation in each location. So typically it'll be, you're sharing a room with one other student on the program. We never put you with strangers, we never put you with strangers who are not on our Global Academic Ventures program. So it's a good chance you might be in an apartment with students from other universities on our program, but you will never be sharing with someone who is not a part of our GAV program for obviously safety. And they are single sex apartments. So they are typically, again, apartment style, hotel style. It depends on the location and sometimes the gender breakdown on what your exact apartment will look like, but that's kind of the general shared accommodation for the program. So as I mentioned before, you'll have orientation activities with the local staff on the ground. You are guaranteed an 8-week internship placement in your location of your choice. And then you'll have internet access at the accommodation, pretty much all of the basics of apartment style accommodation. And then 24/7 student support on the ground. So we will have staff members who are available within a student support phone number that we'll give you during orientation. So if you need to go to the doctor or the hospital, obviously if it's a super emergency where you need to go immediately, then we always encourage you to dial the emergency number in your location. But if it's something like you're just not feeling well over the last few days and you aren't really sure what hospital to go to or what doctor appointment to make, we can help you and even escort you to the doctors or the hospital that you need to go to. So 24/7 student support. And then there's a couple of group dinners throughout the program with our local guides. So that'll be a good chance for you to come together with the rest of the group, debrief on what's been going on, just kind of, have a nice meal, as well as get a touch point with our local staff where you can chat about how things are going and if you have any questions or, you want recommendations on things to do, and just kind of to check in with our team as well. And of course, anytime throughout the program, you can also check in with our team through email or phone as well. You'll get a local transport card with a little bit of credit on it to get you started on your program. So if if it's your first time traveling internationally, we try and make it as seamless as possible when you arrive, so that you don't have to go run around the city and try and find a transport card and figure out, what to do with it and how to use it. We help you with all of that. As well as if it's your first time traveling, or even if it's not your first time traveling internationally, we do have an airport transfer for each group. So if your flight arrives within a designated window that we provide to you, then our team will actually pick you up at the airport when you arrive. And we will also take you to the airport when you depart if your flight is within that time frame. So if you're worried about, oh, I'm going to fly into Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I'm going to just have to figure out, how to get a taxi or how to get the shuttle or whatever it is. If you purchase a flight within that flight window, then our team will actually just pick you up at the airport. So it's convenient as well. And then you'll also have a full day cultural trip. So walking tour of the city during orientation, and then some type of cultural trip depending on what location you choose. All right, so just the general steps for the program. So application process through arrival. So obviously you need to apply for the program through your university website. So Emily, I'm sure, can give more information on that and exactly where to find that. But that deadline, as you mentioned, December 10th.
10th. Yeah, we moved it back due to software issues on our end.
No worries. So December 10th is the deadline for that. So if you're interested, definitely get in touch with your university contact and start that application process. And then you'll just need to pay a deposit for the program, $1,000 program deposit to commit to the program. And then that's when our team will start to communicate with you on the GAV side. So we'll send you some paperwork, and then we'll send you the first steps in the placement process, which will be to set up an interview with our GAV team. And I'll go over that a little bit more in depth in a couple minutes, but that's less of an interview. It's not really an approval interview on our end. There's maybe some of that on the university end before you're actually pay your deposit and are approved on the program. But ours is more of just a conversation with you to get to know you better so that we know what types of companies might be a good fit for you for the placement process. So I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. And then step 4, placement process will begin. We'll talk about that. Step 5 is paying the rest of your program balance. And then skipped a number there, but step 6 will be to receive your placement details. You'll get your visas, your passes, anything that you need for the program, all of those logistics, all of that information will come through our teams. So we'll make sure that you have everything you need for the program. And then you'll receive your placement and travel to your location. And as I mentioned before, even if you're, accepted on the program and you're, eager to start kind of getting your flights and all that, visas, all that, just wait until you get instructions from our team, because we give you, again, a flight window if you want to arrive during a certain time. We give you instructions on your visas or your work holiday pass. So just don't worry. We will make sure you have everything you need. So just don't purchase any flights, especially because those can be tricky, and they're getting trickier to change and things, after COVID. So just don't purchase any flights until you are given instructions. All right, so I think probably one of the things that people are most curious about is our placement process. So as I mentioned before, through these programs, you are guaranteed an internship within your field of study. So you don't have to go out and search for them. Our team does all of the kind of behind the scenes work of circulating your profile to companies and finding a match for you. So the first step in that process is to complete an interview form. So we send that out through Google Forms, and it just asks a little bit more about what your previous experience is, what you're looking for in an internship, what kinds of industries are interesting to you. Are you interested in maybe a smaller or larger company? And we can talk about the pros and cons of each, and what might be the best fit for you. So that form is pretty general, just learning more about you. And then that's when we also collect your resume. So we do ask, if you're thinking about going on this program and you're really, excited to get started, I would say the first thing to do is take your resume to one of your on-campus resources that usually have like resume workshops, or where you can make an appointment to go through your resume with someone. So that's just nice to polish up your resume, make sure that it looks good and is ready to be circulated to, companies for a professional business internship. And we also ask that you include a relevant coursework section. So this is just listing out some of the courses you've taken that might be the most relevant to what you're looking to do as an internship. So if you're a marketing student and you are looking for a marketing internship, then some of the examples might be just introduction to marketing. You've taken international business. Maybe you've taken, if you've taken things like financial accounting in your marketing major, that's fine to include too, but just the ones that are relevant. If you're a 4th-year student, you do not have to list every single class you've taken, just the ones that are most relevant to what you're looking to do, or that you think companies might want to see a variety of your skills. So we ask for that. So again, if you're really excited to start the process, that's a good thing to do. And then The next step will be to select a time to interview with our team. So as mentioned before, it's less of an interview. It's more of just getting to know you, talking through your interview form that you filled out, and getting to know what types of companies might be the best match for you. So we can go through what, again, the pros and cons of company size, industries, talk about what you're interested in and what you've done in the past that might be helpful to market you to these companies. So you'll select that through Calendly. It's pretty simple software to use. Select the time that works best for you, and then it'll send through an invite to Google Teams. So if you're not familiar with Google Teams, we use that a lot. Companies have been more and more using that. So maybe just familiarize yourself again if you're really committed and wanting to do the program and you have some free time now before things get hectic or your classes start up or whatnot. It's good to just kind of review how to use that program. A lot of companies also use Zoom and maybe Google Meet. So they're all pretty standard these days. You've probably used most of them, but if you're, anxious and you want to make sure you can use that technology quickly and easily, take some time to review it beforehand. So then this third step, after your interview with our team, then we will send through what we call a interview summary. So that's just to make sure that our placement team and you are on the same page and as far as what you're looking for in an internship. So maybe when you filled out your interview form, you said, I'm interested in financial services field, retail and consumer goods within a finance team, and I'm interested in a technology company as my top choices. But during your interview, maybe you said, oh, actually, I might be interested in working for a entertainment company as well. This is just a time, and that's a very basic example, but this is a time just to add anything that we talked about during the interview that differs from your interview form, and to just have our team basically communicate to the placement team what we talked about and a little bit more in depth into who you are. So we'll send that through to you to review, and then we'll ask you to sign it. So that's kind of the last step in the process before our team sends your information over to the placement team. And we'll go through that a little bit more in depth in just a minute. So we ask you to review it, and that's just the time to make sure that we're all on the same page. And then that's really when the placement process starts. So we will do some more in-depth steps. So the first few steps here are just kind of an overview of what we just talked about. But once you sign your interview summary, so you've done the interview, you've filled out the interview form, you've sent us a polished resume, you've done your interview with our GAV team, and you've signed your interview summary. And don't worry, we will give you all these steps in writing. So don't worry too much about taking notes right now. But then our team will send your profile out to the placement teams for the country or the location that you are interested in interning in. And that's really when our team takes over and starts to circulate your profile out to companies that might be a good fit for you. So we work on the back end, talking to the companies, seeing what kinds of projects they have available, if it's a good fit for you, if they have projects that they think might be relevant to you, and all of that. And then that's when, once a company is interested in your profile, then we will let you know and be the middleman between setting up interviews for you. So basically all of that to say, there's nothing that you need to do. You're not going to be the one directly reaching out to companies. You're not going to be the one having to set up the calls. We will kind of be the middleman between you and the company to make sure that all of that gets set up and that you're able to do interviews with the companies. So once a company is interested in interviewing you, then we'll set that up. As I mentioned, you might do multiple interviews with multiple companies. You might just do one interview with one company and be placed. It just really depends on each individual student and their specific process. For this program, we really like to tailor it to each student and each company. We want the projects that you do to be relevant to the company at the time that you're going to be arriving in country. We want it to be specific to your field of study and your profile. So we really tailor it to each student. So we're not just slotting you into a a project that's already been established, and we don't want it to just be like a case study type project. We want it to really be something that the company can use and that you can really integrate into the company that you're working with. So because of that, each student's process just looks different. So it can take, it can be really quick sometimes. It can take a little bit longer sometimes. It just depends on each student. But you are guaranteed an internship within your field of study. So you don't have to worry about that. It's just the timeline can look different. There's not one specific day that every student gets their internship placement. It's more of a rolling process. But once we find a good match and your internship is confirmed, then we will send through like a project description and have you sign a offer letter from the company. But just like any other job, it is ultimately up to the company. If you're doing an interview, they might be interviewing other candidates on our program. They might be interviewing internal candidates in the country or the location that you chose. So it's just like any other job. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but there's, as I mentioned, it's a guarantee. So there's no chance of you not getting an internship. We just continue to talk to new companies for you to find that until we find that good match. Does anyone have any questions right now? I know it's a ton of information to take in. Again, all of these steps will be communicated to you through email, and in your interview, we can talk about all the steps that you need to take and answer any questions. We send guides for you to review on what the placement process looks like. So all of this will be reiterated many times if you do decide to go on the program.
I have a question. So what if we interview with the company and we don't like them in a way where like we see ourselves working there?
Mhm.
So what would
Yeah.
that process be?
So typically what we do, if there's an interview that you do that, has something that you want, that you don't feel like aligns with what your learning objectives are or whatever it might be, then we definitely want to hear that feedback. We want this to be, of course, a good match for you and the company. I would say, so the one thing I would say is that it's, you're guaranteed an internship in your field of study, but things like company size, specific industry cannot always be matched perfectly.
Okay.
So if, let's say you're looking and you want to work for a bank, that's, one where we can't guarantee. It's a highly competitive industry. We don't work with a lot of banks. They don't typically take international interns, let alone, undergraduate students, that type of thing. And that's not to say that those opportunities aren't out there and that we can, see if that opportunity might arise. But things like that would not be, a reason to say like this company doesn't align with me if it's like, within your field of study. So it's kind of like making sure that it's obviously a reasonable reason based on like the project work or, specific things like company culture that you didn't feel matched well. So
Yeah.
it's something we would definitely want to talk to you about. So just, I guess, managing those expectations that every preference that you state cannot always be 100% matched. But if there's things that you want to bring up as far as feedback as to why you don't feel it's a good fit, then we will always take that into consideration and chat with you about that and see, how we can move forward in the companies that we circulate you to after that to better match what you're looking for. So yeah, it's definitely, we want to hear your feedback. We want it to be a good fit, but things like, again, that are really specific, we can't always guarantee, then maybe we would talk to you about that and say, hey, like the expectation of, if you're holding off because you want to, work for a Fortune 500 or you want to work for a bank specifically, then maybe that's not as, I guess reasonable isn't the right word, but as it's not something that maybe we can provide. But we can talk through that with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Anna, you had a question?
Yes, I don't want to jump ahead. Maybe you have this in a later slide, but can you explain the financials of it? I know you mentioned the $1,000 deposit, but will there be other fees that have to be paid to your program? Will we be compensated for our time there? Will there be housing stipend, travel stipend, such things?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And specifically as far as like specific program fees, I would suggest talking to your university as well, because sometimes, if you have like things like financial aid or something like that, through the university. But as far as what's included in the program fee that you would pay, so the $1,000 deposit is just to like confirm your participation in the program, and then the rest of the program fee that you'll pay will include housing. So like all the things, back a little bit. Will include all of this. So you'll have your housing for the entire time through your program fee. You'll have that airport transfer. You'll have your 8-week internship placement through that fee. You'll get the local transport card. You know, you'll have the cultural day trip, the dinners that are throughout the program, the 24/7 student support. All of this stuff will be included in that program fee. And so, yeah, it's accommodation. So the things that are outside of that program fee that I would maybe make you aware of is visas. You know, there's no way for us to like, we can't process your visa for you or anything like that. So that is a fee that's outside of the program fee that you will have to pay. And depending on the location, it can look a little bit different. So that's something we can definitely talk through once you kind of decide what location you're interested in. But and flights as well is the other one that is not included in the program fee, because we allow you to purchase, you know, whatever flight works best. If you want to travel beforehand, if you want to, you know, go somewhere after, we don't force you to pick a specific flight. So, and especially because a lot of our students are coming from different universities, they're flying from different places as well. So visas and any passes that are involved in allowing you to work in your internship location are not included, as well as the flights. But the rest of it, you know, all of these things are included in that fee. And I think you had, they are all unpaid internships.
Okay, so on average, how much would you say that program fee is?
So I can pull it up here. 1 second. Here, if you don't mind, I'll go through the rest of my slides and then I'll stop sharing my screen and then I can pull that up for you.
Okay.
One thing to add to that as well, in the chat I put about financial aid. So we say that your financial aid travels with you. So if you receive financial aid, definitely talk with our office on how that process kind of looks like. We have a specific contact at the financial aid office who works on all things study abroad that we always liaise with. On top of that, there is also a $75 non-refundable $75 application fee. Every student who applies to go abroad on anything NC State related, they all have to pay that $75 application fee. So that's the other thing that is not inclusive of the program cost that is on the website, and that will that Maddie will go over later.
All right, so just a few more slides here, just talking general things about each location, if you're kind of deciding between a couple of locations. So Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So Kuala Lumpur is one of the new 7 Wonders cities. So it's, as you can see, got kind of a mix of really cool old caves and really kind of a mix of that bigger city feel along with a lot of nature. So you'll see that there are 3 forest reserves within the city. So lots of nature, lots of cool animals you can go out and see, and places that you can explore the outdoors. There's also, as I just mentioned a little bit, a series of caves and cave temples in the city. One example of that is the Batu Caves. And as you can see in the top picture, that is what one of the caves looks like. There's really, it's Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia in general is very religiously diverse. So it's a really cool place to see a lot of different religions kind of in the same space. You can find these types of temples. You can find just a lot of diversity as far as people from all over the world living there. So there's a lot of history and a lot of religious places you can visit if you enjoy learning more about world religions, as well as just, of course, different world cultures. So it's definitely a hub of a lot of people from all over the world. And it's also the economic hub of Malaysia. So Kuala Lumpur is the biggest city, and you'll find a lot of local companies, local Malaysia companies there, as well as some international corporations that have offices there as well. Okay, Hong Kong. So Hong Kong's population is 7.3 million, and it is a total area of 426 square miles. So as you can imagine, it is one of the most densely populated cities. So pretty small as far as the actual area, but lots of people. It's a very big city as far as lots of hustle and bustle. I would compare it to more of like a New York City. It's just always busy, lots of nightlife, lots of things going on all the time. So it's a mix though still of that urban living and green space. So you'll still get a mix of that there. As you can see, beautiful water, great hikes that are easily accessible, beaches, and then nearby islands for easy day trips. So it is again that mix, a good mix of outdoor activities that you can do, hikes and beaches, as well as a big city feel. And then Hong Kong is also, because of how big it is, or at least as far as population goes, it's home to many Fortune 500 companies. It's a really popular place for Fortune 500 companies from all around the world to have a location or a headquarter there. So you'll find a lot of larger financial services firms, definitely a booming place for businesses to have one of their office locations. In Singapore. So Singapore is one of the world's greenest cities, which I don't know that a lot of people would expect based on maybe what you already know about Singapore, what you've heard or seen. Most people know Singapore, or at least started to know Singapore through the movie Crazy Rich Asians. And so you'll see there that, you know, there's a lot of like shopping and lots of fancy stuff, but Singapore is known as being one of the greenest cities in the world, and it's a very diverse place as well. You know, you have that, again, that mix of city as well as nature, and lots of those green initiatives that you'll see there. So it's among the 20 smallest countries in the world. The United States is about 15,000 times bigger than Singapore. Singapore is a place where it is illegal to chew gum. So it's a very clean city. It's a very safe city. It's very much, you know, there's some kind of quirky laws and regulations there, but it's all to keep it very pristine and clean and beautiful and safe. So that is one that's interesting. If you're a big gum chewer, maybe pick another location. It's not that big of a deal, but it is one of the quirks of Singapore. And then Singapore also has the world's tallest indoor waterfall, which is towering 35 meters high. So it has beautiful botanical garden with a bunch of, again, man-made waterfall. And it's got a lot of those big, what you'll see usually when you Google Singapore is the big sky trees, which you can see a little bit in the left of the bottom photo. But they are really cool. You can walk across them. They have light shows. And then you'll also, it's known for Sentosa Island as well, where you can go to the beach and you can do a lot of, it has like Universal Studios there and lots of fun activities over on Sentosa Island as well. But yeah, Singapore definitely has great shopping, really great food. All of these locations have great food, but Singapore is known for its hawker centers. So if you're interested in looking up what that is as well, it's like a big kind of food court. One of the main initiatives in Singapore is that all people are able to buy a decent meal for a decent price. So they have really cheap, affordable meals all in this big center. And it's really good. They have some places, some of the like stalls in the center are like Michelin star restaurants basically, but they are just little stalls within this big food court, and people line up for miles to get the food for a really cheap price. So it's a really interesting place. But yeah, as you'll see kind of throughout all of these locations, there is a really good mix of nature as well as big city feel. If you're looking for that really large hustle and bustle type of city, then Hong Kong is probably the location that you might go towards, or Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur is definitely a good place if you want to really experience like very rich history and culture, because they have so many of those, again, religious temples, caves. You can go out and see the monkeys and the wildlife, but you can also, intern at a big company. And then Singapore, I would say, is a little bit more laid back, a little bit more, like I mentioned, it's very clean and safe. All of these cities are, but it's definitely more kind of a relaxed feel as far as comparatively to Hong Kong and Kuala Lumpur. So it's easy transportation. Again, it's very safe, some quirky laws that keep everyone safe and kind of in line. But it's a little bit more of that relaxed feel than the other two, I would say. As far as companies in all of these locations, you'll find small startups, local companies, all the way up to large Fortune 500 companies in each location. So there's not a huge difference. If your priority is working for a large company, or your preference is to work for a large company, then maybe Singapore or Hong Kong might be a good choice. But there's definitely those larger companies in Kuala Lumpur as well. But so yeah, there's really, as far as like, I wouldn't choose a location based on what type of company you want to work for, because you'll find the variety in each spot. But I would say more so on the lifestyle and kind of what you want to explore when you're there, is more how I would choose which location. So does anyone have any questions on kind of the differences in the locations, or are you thinking of a specific location and you want to know, comparatively which one you might want to lean towards? It's okay if not.
I do.
Yeah.
So I know Emily knows a little bit more, but I'm trying to find an internship that kind of blends business and education, especially like higher education. So I'm looking at like at a university or something like that relates to business also, but like operations. So is there a specific city that I should be looking at?
So that is a good one, because it is a little bit unique. I can't guarantee that we would be able to partner with a university. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know specifically that we've done that in the past, or had like students work specifically at a university in these locations, just because regulations and things like that of, an international student going to work for another university. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head. I can definitely, ask my team if that's a possibility. But there's definitely ways that there's a lot of students who have really unique interests in business, and combining business with, let's say, yeah, like even early education, or, some students are like kinesiology students, they want to learn about the business world of healthcare or whatnot. So there's ways that we can definitely mix your interests and kind of get creative with what you're interested in learning. As far as specific location, as far as specific location recommendation, I would maybe lean towards more Singapore or Hong Kong.
Depends. Are you more interested in working for an institution, like working for a university business school?
Yeah, basically. Or like
Okay.
anything, like it could be management. I don't really, as long as it kind of ties something like with international education.
Okay, because executive education is a very big growing business. Like, for example, in Singapore Management University and National University of Singapore and Nanyang Technical. Those are the three big research institutions in Singapore. They're all trying to sell executive ed to
Okay.
General Electric, to Duke Energy, to, IBM. You pick it, right? The challenge that they are having, that some of them are having, in my recent trip to Singapore, my recent trip to Kuala Lumpur a couple weeks ago, so I'm based in Sydney as well, is that the new tech companies, the mega cap tech companies, the Apples, the Googles, the Alphabets, the Teslas, are actually preferring online instruction, in-person instruction. So everyone from Harvard to NUS to Stanford, everything are sort of trying to make this transition to attract executive ed, where you're not really giving out an MBA degree necessarily, but you're collecting people who are mid-career executives to train them up over 1 week and 2 week programs. Usually, these are really popular because for the institutions they can be quite profitable because you're basically selling education at corporate rates.
Yeah.
Is that along the lines of the kind of internship that you would want to potentially have?
Yeah, that works because like I don't want specifically like a university. I just want it to kind of blend in itself as well. But yeah,
The other one, yeah, the other area that I would probably encourage you to look at is early education. Early stage education is very, very. I'll give you a name of one company you can look at called Mind Champs, MINDCHAMPS. We've had interns there before, and they're in Singapore, they're in Australia, they're all over the place. And they're doing earlier stage education, and that stuff is growing like crazy. So that'd be another area that might be of interest if you're interested in education, the business of education, the business of selling education kind of thing. And then there's student recruitment, which is enormous as well. Like student recruitment offshore for the United States is an enormous industry.
yeah,
That's
I'm
another.
interested in that.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, for that one, Hong Kong is doing quite well because obviously a lot of the political issues in Hong Kong are causing people to want to send their kids offshore potentially, or find other solutions that they may give them a new opportunity to work or live somewhere else. So those are some things to think about. Whether you go on our program or not, it's not, I'm just saying that those are some things to think about because I've been in the education business for 21 years, the education business, for 21 years, because we're not an institution, you see. So those are some things to think about if you're wanting to get into it. I would say if you have good contacts around the world outside of the United States, recruitment for U.S. institutions has become a very, very big business. I mean, everywhere from NC State to UNC Chapel Hill to, wherever, you're talking about, it's a big business because they are top students from around the world tend to still want to come to America. I'm based in Australia. It's in Australia as well. So student recruitment would be an interesting one, I think. Executive ed is the other one, executive ed and MBAs. Everybody's trying to figure out undergraduate education tends to be pretty solid. The numbers are there, everything, but it's MBAs, executive MBAs, online MBAs, and exec ed, new degrees in new master's courses in AI, machine learning, data analytics. How do we develop these new courses and package them in a way that we can either sell them to executives or online or to people who want to advance their degrees and stuff? It's a growing field. It's a good thing I think to look at. But those are just some ideas. I mean? So I know you're talking about higher ed, but higher ed's pretty broad. But education in general, I'd say K through 12, university and master's in executive ed, there's opportunities in all of
them. Okay, yeah. I just wanted to get like if there's, some internships related to that.
Yeah, there are. Like I said, we've had students at Mind Champs before, and they're in Singapore big time. But then you've also got a bunch of stuff going on in Hong Kong that's even more kind of innovative in a way. Australia is an enormous education market. The number one export in New South Wales, where we're based, in Sydney, Australia, where Maddie and I are based, is international education. Isn't that amazing? That is the number one export from New South Wales. And I believe it's one of the top exports from New Zealand as well. Auckland's big in this. And New Zealand would be an interesting one because they're sort of looking at more innovative models, I think, because they have to maybe work a little bit harder than Australia does sometimes, I guess, to compete with Australia, to compete with America. But America still leads the world in higher education. No question about it. I travel all over the world and wow. So institutions like NC State, I would have a hard time finding an institution as outstanding as NC State anywhere in Asia Pacific. There might be one or two. That's how good the U.S. institutions are. And why they can attract, even at the costs of the U.S., why they can attract students from around the world, So, yes, I'd encourage you to look at that. I think that's good that you're thinking about that. That's good.
Thank you.
Sure.
location. So we can definitely answer those questions too if you have more specific ones before you get on the program. But then, yeah, these are the types of things that we'll also be able to chat with you guys through, you know, during your interviews to see exactly where we can kind of combine your unique interests with your field of study. And we can definitely get pretty creative. As I mentioned, we've had students from all different fields of study within business, and then maybe a minor in something that's not even necessarily business directly related, where we can kind of meld the two together to create it still having to do with business in a way, but having your specific unique interests or your specific unique career goals and mesh the two together. So it's a great example of that we can definitely do for you if you decide that this is the right program and the right locations for you. Anyone else have questions specifically about, you know, what you might be looking at or the locations that you might be looking at? Or Stephen, was there anything you wanted to add about the differences or the similarities between these three locations?
Oh, you know, they're all so exciting. I've lived in Australia for 21 years. I grew up in the United States and Australian citizenship and US citizenship. And so I've lived here for 21 years, and I lived in Singapore for 4 years before that. I would encourage you on all the different destinations. I just got back from a week in Kuala Lumpur. I'm really big on KL, really big on Malaysia. It's got tremendous opportunities. I'm long on Hong Kong. Yeah, Hong Kong's got issues right now and stuff, but I'm long on Hong Kong. I still think that we're going to see good things out of Hong Kong in the long term. The expats are still there. You know, the business community is still thriving. So, and New Zealand as well. You know, so I can't think of a bad one. All of them have different unique advantages, but they're all exciting. You know, you can't go wrong. One has a bigger advantage over another one. You know, the cultural immersion in Malaysia would probably be a little stronger. I think building contacts in Malaysia is and then after that, Hong Kong, Singapore still has great cultural immersion, but it's more Western, it's more modern, it's far more corporate, so to speak. You know, but again, all three are great, and you know, I would encourage you to look at any and all of them. You can't go wrong. There's more similarities in these three than there are differences, I guess is what I would say. You know, there's more opportunity. There's big opportunities in all three. There's nowhere that is really that much bigger and greater, and they're just different a little bit, you know.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. In my time in these locations, it's they're definitely all great opportunities for whatever you might be looking for. It really just comes down to maybe a special interest in one of the locations over another, or yeah, the maybe you want that really densely populated big city versus one that's maybe just a little bit less populated and still has some of the similar you know, similar, I guess, feel similar across the board. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think one thing to note for all of you as well, that hopefully you already know, but there's no like language requirement for this program. All of these locations will primarily speak English in the business world. So, you know, anyone that we're placing you with, the primary business language will be English. Of course, you're going to probably be working with some people from all around the world in each location. So, you know, on their free time, you might hear and get to kind of learn a little bit more about each culture or language and hear that in your spare time. But as far as the business language, there's no requirement for you to have any other language skills, which is a really great benefit of all of these. As Stephen mentioned, Kuala Lumpur is probably a little bit more of that maybe cultural immersion because it just has it's a little bit less modern and a little bit more of that rich history that you might explore. But they're all great starts to kind of enter into this side of the world. So yeah, they're all pretty comparable, just depending on what you're looking for. Great.
I
yeah,
had a quick question, Maddie. Sorry. So say like I'm thinking specifically of a student like Angel who has a very specific interest. Say they apply to Singapore, but then after they do all your interviews and those kind of processes, is it okay then if they switch to a different program if they've already paid like the $1,000 fee or the $1,000 deposit?
So it's a good question. So basically, the main time that we would want to lock down a location would be after we have the interview with the student and we send that interview summary. And once they sign that interview summary, that's kind of saying like, okay, we're going ahead with this. If it's within like a couple of days or something, then yeah, we can probably switch it after they sign. But that's really kind of what we like to do is before they sign that interview summary, ask all the questions, talk with our team, have even after the interview, if you go home and then you talk to your parents about it or your friends and you're like, wait, no, actually, maybe I want to do this location. Before that interview summary is signed, all of those conversations can happen. But that's really when we ask students to kind of lock in their location, just because, as we're circulating students out to companies, we don't really want to do any kind of like almost like false advertising students that aren't actually going to be going to that location. We want to make sure that we are spending our time as well as the students' placement time towards something that will lead to that good match. So we don't want to waste the company time, our time, their student time limits and placements and stuff. So that would be kind of when we would ask. And then before that, though, we can have as many conversations as you want about the locations, the pros, the cons, the types of companies we have available. Again, as far as our offerings across all of GAV, these 3 locations are probably the most similar as far as, there's just really not that much huge difference between them. We can find, again, small local startups all the way up to Fortune 500 companies in each of them, but they do all, of course, have those little quirks or differences. But yeah, those are conversations that we'd probably want to have before that interview summary is signed and before we start sending your resume. So like we wouldn't want to necessarily change it if you're already doing interviews with companies or whatnot. But yeah, obviously there are circumstances that we can make exceptions if it's a bigger conversation, but that's primarily the timeline as far as choosing a location to go to, as well as, of course, locking down housing and all the logistics, visas, work holiday pass, all of that. We also want to, of course, make sure that that's all done in a timely manner. So that's kind of the timeline.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And I see, thank you very much for adding those costs. And the only reason that I don't like to put specific costs on this type of PowerPoint is just because it is so specific to each student sometimes. So the general cost, you can see in the chat. So they're also listed on the website. Hong Kong, $6,690 US. Kuala Lumpur, a little bit lower, $6,155. And Singapore, again at the 6,690, and that includes the $1,000 deposit. And as you mentioned, there's that $75 application fee from the university side. So again, that's just why I don't like to specifically say this is exactly what each of you will pay, because you all have different circumstances as far as financial aid and things that go along with it. So, but that's just a little overview for you. All right. Did anyone have any other questions that they can think of right now? I can stay on for a couple minutes if you have specifics, but definitely, if you're interested in this program, reach out to Emily. Emily can always pass along any questions that she can't answer to us. And then if we can't answer another question you have, then we'll pass it back. We're in close communication with the university as their third party provider. So we can help and jump in as Stephen has mentioned, he's lived in these locations and I've traveled to these locations. So we're always happy to answer any questions ahead of the deadline so that you can make the most informed decision for you.
Yeah, Emily, I want to thank you for setting this up and all your hard work on this. It was great meeting you in Raleigh. I guess, was that about a month ago that I was there? My goodness, it seems like
Not long
decades
ago.
ago. Yeah, I was going to say, had some Indian food and everything. That was wonderful. We're very excited to be working with NC State. We think you are a great institution. I think you all have Poole has an amazing international program that your students benefit from, and we're just honored to be a part of it. Maddie, I want to thank you. Years and years and years of service to GAV. She knows her stuff, as you can tell. She's been one of our best investments over the many years. And appreciate the students from Poole coming on to have a look at this. It's exciting to see that there's interest, and we'll hopefully have some some great things for you to do. So thank you all very much, and we're at your disposal to talk further.
Yep. Thank you guys so much. I'll hang around for a little bit too if anyone has any specific application questions, especially some of you who may have received an email from me earlier today about issues we were having. But we will conclude here. Thank you, Maddie and Stephen, so much. And also to our amazing students who took time out of their busy exam season to come and chat with us. But thank you guys. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you.